My name is Chloe, and at 32, I never imagined my wedding would become the center of a family war. When my grandmother Evelyn, who practically raised me, became too frail to travel, I knew what I had to do. We moved our entire wedding to her nursing home. My mother called it embarrassing. My sister called it pathetic. But the look in my grandmother's eyes that day was worth everything that came after. Before I tell you what happened when our wedding photos went viral, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like button if you've ever had to choose between family expectations and doing what feels right. Growing up, my grandmother Evelyn was my rock, while my parents chased their high-powered careers. She was the one who made sure I had home-cooked meals and someone to read me bedtime stories. My mother, Catherine, was always climbing the corporate ladder at her marketing firm, and my father was constantly traveling for his job as a sales executive. They provided for me financially, but emotionally, it was Grandma Evelyn who filled the gaps. She lived just 3 blocks away from our suburban Chicago home, and I practically lived at her house after school. Her kitchen always smelled like cinnamon and vanilla, and she taught me everything from how to bake her famous apple pie to how to mend a torn seam. A woman should know how to create and how to repair, she would say, in her gentle but firm way. Every Sunday was our special day. We would attend church together, then come home and prepare a big family dinner. While my parents would often be checking emails or taking calls during these meals, Grandma would engage me in conversation, asking about school, my friends, and my dreams. She kept every art project, every report card, every achievement in a special box she called Chloe's Treasures. When I turned 16 and had my heart broken by my first boyfriend, it was Grandma who sat with me on her porch swing, handed me a cup of hot chocolate despite it being summer, and said, "Honey, sometimes people come into our lives to teach us what we don't want, so we can recognize what we do want when it comes along." That wisdom stayed with me through every relationship. After college, when I moved into my first apartment, Grandma gave me her hand-stitched quilt that had been on her bed for 20 years. "So a piece of home is always with you," she said. I cried that day, realizing how much of who I was had been shaped by her gentle guidance. My body. I met Liam at 28, at a charity fundraiser for the hospital where I worked as a physical therapist. He was volunteering, helping set up the event, and I noticed him struggling with a particularly stubborn tent pole. When I went to help, our hands touched, and he looked at me with such genuine warmth that I felt instantly comfortable. Our first date was coffee that turned into lunch, that turned into dinner. I knew by the end of that marathon date that he was special, but the real test was Grandma Evelyn. I brought him to Sunday dinner 2 weeks later, nervous about her approval. I needn't have worried. The moment Liam walked in and immediately went to help her carry dishes from the kitchen without being asked, I saw her eyes light up. When he asked about the photos on her wall and listened intently to her stories, I knew he'd passed her unspoken test. "That one's a keeper," she whispered to me as we washed dishes together. "He looks at you the way your grandfather looked at me." Over the next 3 years, Liam became as much a part of our Sunday traditions as the apple pie. He would come early to help Grandma with any small repairs around her house, changing light bulbs or reaching things on high shelves. They developed their own relationship, independent of me. Sometimes I'd find them in deep conversation about history or politics, 2 subjects they both loved. When Liam proposed on Christmas Eve under the twinkling lights of the city's annual display, my first thought after saying yes was how excited I was to tell Grandma Evelyn. But life has a way of changing our plans. 6 months before our wedding date, at 87, Grandma fell in her home and broke her hip. The recovery was complicated by her age and developing dementia. After a month in the hospital, it became clear she could no longer live independently, and we moved her to Lakeside Care Center, a nursing home 10 miles from my apartment. The adjustment was hard on all of us, but especially her. The woman who had been so independent, who had raised not only her own children but helped raise me, was now dependent on others for basic needs. Her good days, when her mind was sharp and she remembered everyone, became less frequent. On bad days, she would sometimes call me by my mother's name or ask when her husband was coming to visit, though he had passed away 15 years earlier. Liam and I visited at least 3 times a week. We'd bring her favorite foods, photos to remind her of family events, and always a fresh bouquet for her room. Flowers bring life to any space, she had always said. 3 months before our planned wedding at the Lakeside Gardens venue, we had a particularly good visit. Grandma was lucid, asking specific questions about our wedding plans. As we were leaving, she squeezed my hand and said, "I'm so looking forward to your big day, sweetheart. I've been saving my energy for it." That night, driving home, I turned to Liam with tears in my eyes. "She won't be able to make it to the venue," I said. "It's a 30-minute drive, and even that short trip exhausts her now. The venue doesn't allow outside vendors, so we can't arrange special transport. And even if we could get her there, she'd be too tired to enjoy it." Liam took my hand and kept his eyes on the road. "Then we bring the wedding to her," he said simply, as if it were the most obvious solution in the world. "You want to get married at a nursing home?" I asked, trying to process the idea. "I want to get married wherever your grandmother can be fully present," he replied. "The where doesn't matter to me, Chloe. The who does." I kissed him at the next red light, knowing in that moment I was marrying exactly the right person. What I didn't know was how much resistance we were about to face from the rest of my family. Asterisk. The original plan had been beautiful in its conventionality. Lakeside Gardens was a popular wedding venue with its manicured grounds, fountain terrace, and glass-enclosed reception hall overlooking the water. We'd put down a sizable deposit, selected a caterer from their approved list, and I'd even had my first dress fitting. Everything was proceeding according to the timeline in my color-coded wedding planner, but the decision to change venues changed everything. I called my parents first, thinking they would understand the importance of having Grandma Evelyn fully participate. "You want to get married where?" My mother's voice over the phone was sharp with disbelief. "At Lakeside Care Center," I repeated. "They have a community room we can decorate, and this way, Grandma won't have to travel." "She gets tired so easily now, Mom." There was a long pause before she spoke again. "Chloe, I understand you're close to your grandmother, but this is your wedding. It's supposed to be the most beautiful day of your life, not some depressing event in an institution that smells like disinfectant." "It won't be depressing," I countered. "We'll decorate it beautifully. And besides, what matters is who's there, not where it happens." My mother's laugh was cold. "That's what people without options say to make themselves feel better. You have options, Chloe. You're choosing to have a wedding that no one will want to attend." "That's not fair," I said, feeling my throat tighten. "Liam and I both want this." Of course he agreed. What else could he do? But trust me, no man dreams of getting married in a nursing home. And what about our friends? Our business associates? This is too miserable to tell anyone. After hanging up with my mother, I immediately called my sister, Olivia, hoping for an ally. Olivia was 2 years younger than me, following in our mother's footsteps at the same marketing firm, and was usually more understanding of my choices. "Please tell me you're joking," was her response after I explained our decision. "You can't seriously be planning to get married surrounded by old people in wheelchairs. It's important to me that Grandma can be fully present," I repeated. "Take lots of pictures with her before the wedding then. Or do a small ceremony at the nursing home and the real wedding at Lakeside Gardens." But a full wedding there, Chloe? Think about how that will look. Look to who? To everyone. To your friends, to mom and dad's friends, to social media. People will call it a poverty wedding and laugh about it. Is that what you want trending on your wedding day? By the time I hung up with Olivia, I was fighting back tears. Liam found me sitting on our apartment floor, surrounded by wedding planning magazines, crying. They hate the idea, I told him. They think it's embarrassing and pathetic. Liam sat beside me and pulled me close. And what do you think? I think my grandmother deserves to see me get married without being exhausted or confused. I think she's more important than a pretty backdrop for photos. Then that's all that matters, he said firmly. The next few days brought a barrage of calls and texts from extended family members, clearly recruited by my mother to change my mind. Aunt Carol called to suggest I was making this decision out of some misguided sense of martyrdom. Uncle Mark emailed links to alternative venues that offered transportation services for elderly guests. My cousin Jessica texted bluntly, "Your wedding, your funeral." The only person who didn't try to dissuade me was my father. He called late one evening when I knew my mother was at a business dinner. "Your mother means well," he said after I answered. "She just has certain ideas about how things should be, and I'm ruining her perfect vision," I replied. "Not ruining," he corrected gently. "Challenging. She spent 30 years building a certain image, and this doesn't fit that image." "Dad, this isn't about her." "I know that, and deep down she does too. Give her time." He paused. "For what it's worth, I think what you're doing for your grandmother is beautiful. I wish I'd shown that kind of consideration to my own parents while they were alive." That conversation gave me strength. But the real confrontation came the following Sunday at my parents' house. My mother had insisted on a family dinner to discuss wedding plans, which I knew meant another attempt to change my mind. The tension was palpable from the moment Liam and I arrived. My mother barely acknowledged his greeting, and Olivia was typing furiously on her phone, barely looking up. My father offered tight smiles and poured wine that no one touched. "I've been thinking," my mother began once we were seated at the dining table. "We could arrange for a live stream of the ceremony at Lakeside Gardens. Your grandmother could watch from her room, and it would be almost like being there." "Almost isn't good enough," I said quietly. "She deserves to be physically present." "Chloe," Olivia interjected, finally putting down her phone. "You're being ridiculous. Grandma probably won't even remember the wedding the next day. Why sacrifice your special day for someone who won't appreciate it?" Liam's hand found mine under the table and squeezed. I squeezed back, grateful for his silent support. "That's a terrible thing to say," I told my sister. "Even if her memory isn't perfect, she'll experience the joy in the moment. That matters." "What matters," my mother cut in, "is that you're about to throw away a $10,000 deposit and subject all our guests to an uncomfortable, depressing environment because you're being stubborn." "Catherine," my father warned, but she waved him off. "I'm simply stating facts, Robert. No one wants to attend a wedding in a nursing home. It's morbid." "Then don't come," I said, the words out before I could reconsider. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother placed her fork carefully beside her plate. "If that's how you feel," she said, "perhaps we won't." Liam and I left soon after, the dinner barely touched. In the car, I second-guessed myself for the first time. "Am I being selfish?" I asked Liam. "Making everyone uncomfortable for Grandma's sake?" "You're being true to your values," he answered. "And honestly, I'm proud of you for it." Still, doubt had crept in. The next day, I called the wedding planner we'd hired, half expecting her to drop us as clients. Instead, Megan surprised me. "Actually, I think this is a beautiful idea," she said. "It will be a challenge, but I love challenges. Let's meet at the nursing home tomorrow and see what we're working with." Megan turned out to be a godsend. She visited the nursing home, measured the community room, and immediately began sketching ideas for transforming the space. She suggested bringing in removable wall coverings, strategic lighting, and floral arrangements that would completely change the atmosphere. "We'll create a tunnel effect for your entrance," she explained, showing me her sketches, "and arrange the seating so the residents who want to attend can be comfortable, while still keeping it intimate." For the first time since making our decision, I felt a spark of excitement. Maybe this could be beautiful after all. But as I was leaving the nursing home that day, my phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Astamo's mom's telling everyone the wedding's been downsized due to family health concerns. At least she's trying to save you from social suicide." I showed the text to Liam when I got home. He sighed heavily. "They're really going to make this hard every step of the way, aren't they?" Chapter 30. "Looks like it," I admitted. "Are you sure you're okay with this? With all the drama?" "Chloe," he said, taking both my hands in his. "I'm marrying you, not your mother or sister. Their drama is temporary. Our marriage is for life." With Liam's unwavering support and Megan's creative vision, I felt ready to move forward. But the weeks ahead would test that resolve in ways I couldn't have anticipated. Asterisk. As our new wedding plans took shape, my mother and sister escalated their campaign to change our minds. My mother began calling daily with concerns that grew increasingly dramatic. "The liability issues alone should worry you," she said during one call. "What if one of the residents has a medical emergency during your ceremony? What if someone with dementia disrupts your vows? Have you even thought about these things?" Another day it was, "The photography will be atrocious. Dark institutional lighting, medical equipment in the background. These are your forever memories, Chloe." And another, "Your father's business partners will be completely put off. This could affect his standing in the company." Olivia's approach was less direct, but equally undermining. She'd send me links to articles about wedding disasters, or forward social media posts mocking unconventional venues with comments like, "Remind you of anything? ... At my bridal shower, which my mother's friend hosted at her country club, Olivia raised her glass for a toast and said, "To Chloe, who always has to do things her own way, even when it makes life harder for everyone else." The uncomfortable laughter that followed made me want to disappear. The worst moment came when my mother cornered me at a family birthday celebration for my cousin. She'd had several glasses of wine, and her filter was non-existent. "Do you know what people are saying?" she hissed, pulling me into my cousin's guest bedroom. "They're saying you must be pregnant and showing, so you're hiding behind a quick, shabby wedding. Or that Liam must be controlling and isolating you from the family. Is that the kind of talk you want surrounding your marriage?" "Those sound like stories you're creating, Mom," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "None of our actual friends have said anything like that." "Because they're saying it behind your back." She threw her hands up in exasperation. "Wake up, Chloe. This decision reflects on all of us." I left the party early, texting Liam to pick me up. I cried the whole way home, wondering if this rift with my family would ever heal. Through all of this, I was careful to shield Grandma Evelyn from the conflict. During our visits, I kept the conversation focused on positive aspects of the wedding planning, never mentioning the family tension. But she was perceptive, even with her declining health. "Your mother giving you trouble about having it here?" she asked one afternoon as I was showing her fabric swatches for the chair covers. I hesitated, not wanting to burden her. "She's just being Mom," I said finally. Everything has to be perfect. Grandma patted my hand. Catherine always did care too much about appearances. Even as a little girl, she wouldn't leave the house unless her socks matched her headband. She chuckled at the memory. But you, my dear, have always seen with your heart. What Grandma didn't know was how her fellow residents had embraced our wedding plans. As word spread through the nursing home that a wedding would be held in their community room, a kind of excitement took hold. Residents would stop me in the hallway to ask about details or offer suggestions. Mr. Peterson, a former florist, insisted on advising about the flower arrangements. "Nothing too fragrant," he cautioned. "Some medications make strong smells overwhelming." Mrs. Davis, who had been a seamstress, offered to add some hand beading to my veil. "These old fingers still know their way around a needle," she said proudly. Even the nursing staff got involved, rearranging schedules so those who would come to know us could attend, offering to help elderly residents get dressed for the occasion, and suggesting ways to make the space more accessible. This growing community of support contrasted sharply with my family's rejection. When I told my mother about Mr. Peterson's flower advice, she scoffed. "Now you're taking wedding advice from nursing home residents? What's next? Having them cater it with pureed foods?" Liam's family, thankfully, had a completely different reaction. His parents, David and Susan, lived 3 hours away, but drove in specifically to visit the nursing home and meet Grandma Evelyn. They brought her flowers and spent an afternoon getting to know her, listening to her stories, and showing genuine interest. "We're so happy Chloe will have her special day with you there," Susan told Grandma, loud enough for me to overhear as I returned from getting coffee. Families should be together for important moments. Later, as we walked them to their car, David put a hand on my shoulder. "You're doing a good thing, Chloe. Our son chose well." Their approval meant everything, but it couldn't completely erase the hurt from my own family's rejection. 2 weeks before the wedding, my mother made her ultimatum clear during a phone call. "I've given this a lot of thought," she said, her voice formal as if addressing a business associate. "If you insist on going through with this nursing home event, your father and I will make a brief appearance at the ceremony only. We will not be staying for any reception, and we won't be in family photographs. I cannot in good conscience appear to support a decision this misguided." That night, after hanging up, I broke down completely. Liam held me as I sobbed, releasing weeks of pent-up hurt and anger. "Maybe they're right," I cried. "Maybe I am being selfish and ridiculous." "Look at me," Liam said, gently lifting my chin. "You are the least selfish person I know. You're giving up the fairy tale wedding most women dream about to make sure your grandmother can be truly present. That's love in its purest form." I fell asleep in his arms that night, emotionally exhausted, but somehow clearer about our path forward. This wedding wasn't about perfect photos or social approval. It was about honoring the woman who had shaped me, about beginning our marriage with an act of love rather than an expensive party. The final straw came 3 days before the wedding when I posted a simple announcement on social media. "Change of plans. Liam and I will be celebrating our special day at Lakeside Care Center so Grandma Evelyn can be fully present. Love outweighs location every time." Within minutes, Olivia had commented, "Lol, good luck explaining this poverty wedding to your future kids." Some things are better left offline. She added a laughing emoji for emphasis. My mother followed with, "We support Chloe always," though we wish circumstances allowed for a more traditional celebration. Friends quickly jumped to my defense, posting supportive comments and drowning out my family's negativity. But the damage was done. I turned off notifications and threw my phone across the room. "I can't do this anymore," I told Liam that evening. I can't keep fighting them. He sat beside me on our couch and took both my hands in his. Then stop fighting, he said simply. Let them think what they want. We know why we're doing this, and the people who matter understand. The night before our wedding, I couldn't sleep. Not with typical bride jitters, but with a heavy sadness that my own mother and sister couldn't see the beauty in what we were doing. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Liam, and went to our balcony. The spring air was cool but not uncomfortable. Stars dotted the clear sky, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear music from a neighbor's apartment. I thought about Grandma Evelyn, probably asleep in her nursing home bed, unaware of all the conflict surrounding our decision to marry there. I won't regret this, I whispered to the night air, making a promise to myself. No matter what happens tomorrow, I won't regret choosing love over appearances. Asterisk. The morning of our wedding broke clear and sunny, as if nature itself approved of our choice. I had stayed at my best friend Sarah's apartment the night before, maintaining at least that one wedding tradition. She had been my rock throughout the planning process, never once questioning our venue decision. Ready to become Mrs. Liam Taylor? She asked, bringing me coffee in bed. More than ready, I replied, surprised to find I meant it completely. Despite all the drama, I felt certain about Liam and our decision. We arrived at Lakeside Care Center at 9 o'clock in the morning, 6 hours before the ceremony was set to begin. Megan, our wedding planner, was already there directing a small army of vendors. The transformation of the community room was underway, and even in its half-finished state, I could see it was going to be beautiful. White fabric had been hung to create a false ceiling, hiding the institutional tiles. Twinkle lights were being strung throughout, creating a starry effect. The usual folding tables had been removed, replaced with wooden chairs adorned with flowing white covers and lavender sashes. A wooden arch, which would serve as our altar, was being decorated with fresh flowers in shades of purple and white. What do you think? Megan asked, appearing at my side. It's magnificent, I breathed. I can't believe this is the same room. Wait until you see it finished, she promised. Now, let's get you to the staff break room. We've converted it into a bridal suite for today. The bridal suite was small, but had been decorated with the same attention to detail. White fabric covered the walls, fresh flowers sat on every surface, and a full-length mirror had been brought in. My dress hung from a clothing rack, protected in its garment bag. Sarah and my 2 other bridesmaids, college friends Mia and Ava, arrived shortly after. They carried trays of breakfast pastries and mimosas, and soon the tiny room was filled with laughter and excitement. As we were doing our hair and makeup, there was a knock at the door. Sarah opened it to find Nurse Grace, one of Grandma's favorite caregivers. There's someone who wants to see the bride, she said with a smile. Grandma Evelyn was in her wheelchair, but she wasn't in her usual sweatsuit. She wore a beautiful blue dress I hadn't seen before. Her thin white hair was styled elegantly, and she even had a touch of makeup on. The staff helped me get ready, she explained, seeing my surprise. I wanted to look my best for your big day. I knelt beside her wheelchair, careful of my half-done hair. You look beautiful, Grandma. She touched my cheek gently. Not as beautiful as you will. I've been telling everyone my granddaughter is the prettiest bride this place has ever seen. I'm the only bride this place has ever seen, I laughed. Details, she waved dismissively, making us all laugh. After Grandma was taken back to finish her own preparations, including a fresh flower corsage the staff had arranged, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was exactly why we had made our controversial choice. That feeling was reinforced when Mr. Peterson arrived with a special boutonniere he had created for Liam. Been saving the best bloom for the groom, he said proudly. Mrs. Davis came by with my veil, now adorned with tiny pearl beads she had sewn by hand. "Something to catch the light when you walk," she explained. Even residents I hadn't met personally sent small tokens. A handkerchief embroidered with my new initials. A vintage hairpin for something borrowed. A blue ribbon to tie around my bouquet. The nursing staff moved efficiently around us, helping residents prepare for the event while continuing their regular care duties. They had arranged for extra staff today, ensuring residents who wanted to attend could be properly dressed and transported to the community room. As the morning progressed, I periodically checked my phone, hoping for some message from my mother or sister indicating they had reconsidered their stance. There was nothing. Liam texted regularly from his getting ready location, the physical therapy room, temporarily converted for his use. His messages were full of excitement and love, with no hint of regret about our venue choice. "Mr. Miller just showed me pictures of his wedding from 1952, one text read. "Says our marriage will last because we're starting it with an act of kindness." By 1 o'clock, I was fully dressed and ready. My hair was arranged in loose curls with fresh flowers woven throughout. My makeup was natural but enhancing. My wedding dress was simpler than the one I had originally chosen for the garden venue, an A-line gown with cap sleeves and subtle lace detailing, comfortable enough to move among wheelchair-bound guests without fear of tripping. "You look absolutely stunning," Sarah said, stepping back to take me in. "Liam is going to lose it when he sees you." Mia agreed. At 1:30, Megan came to the break room, looking uncharacteristically concerned. "Your mother and sister just arrived," she informed me. They're asking about changing the seating arrangement." My heart sank. "What do they want?" "They want to sit in the back row, separate from the rest of the family section."
They said they don't want to be featured in photos.
I closed my eyes briefly, absorbing this final slight. "Give them whatever they want," I said finally. "Just don't let them upset Grandma." "Already on it," Megan assured me. "I've stationed Mia's boyfriend near your grandmother to run interference if needed." At 1:45, my father arrived at the break room door, looking uncomfortable in his suit, but determined. "You look beautiful, Chloe," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thanks, Dad." I wasn't sure what else to say. He had been the least openly opposed to our plans, but he also hadn't stood up to my mother or sister. "I want you to know," he continued, "that regardless of where this wedding is happening, I'm proud to walk you down the aisle. And I think what you're doing for your grandmother is something special." It wasn't a full apology for the family's behavior, but it was something. I took his arm, ready to begin the most important walk of my life. "Let's go get me married," I said. "Manamamamam." The community room had been transformed beyond my wildest expectations. As I stood at the entrance, arm linked with my father's, I could hardly believe this was the same institutional space where residents usually played bingo and watched old movies. The ceiling twinkled with hundreds of fairy lights. The walls were covered with flowing white fabric, creating a tent-like effect that hid the institutional beige paint. The wooden chairs were arranged in a semicircle, allowing space for wheelchairs to be positioned comfortably throughout. At the far end stood the flower-covered arch where Liam waited, and the people. Nearly every resident who was physically able had come, dressed in their finest clothes, many holding small bouquets the staff had helped them create from the extra wedding flowers. The nursing staff stood along the sides, still in uniform, but with corsages pinned to their scrubs. Our invited guests filled the remaining seats, though I noted with a pang that the front row on my side had conspicuous empty spaces where my mother and sister should have been. Instead, they sat in the last row, my mother in a beige suit that seemed deliberately understated, my sister beside her, texting on her phone even as the music began. But then I saw Grandma Evelyn in her place of honor at the front, her wheelchair decorated with ribbons and flowers, and everyone else faded from importance. Her face lit up when she saw me, and she reached out her hand as I approached. I broke protocol and stopped beside her before continuing to the altar. "You look like an angel," she whispered. "I learned from the best," I whispered back, squeezing her fragile hand before continuing my walk to Liam. And Liam, my wonderful, supportive Liam, stood waiting, his eyes never leaving mine as I approached. He looked handsome in his dark suit, Mr. Peterson's special boutonniere on his lapel. But it was the love in his expression that took my breath away. "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," he said when I reached him. The ceremony itself was simple but meaningful. We had written our own vows, and when it was my turn to speak, I didn't try to hide the emotion in my voice. "Liam, you showed me what love truly means when you suggested we move our wedding here. You understood without me having to explain that some things matter more than appearances, that love is about presence, not presentation. I promise to carry that lesson through our marriage, to prioritize what truly matters over what merely looks good. I promise to love you with the same selflessness you've shown me, to stand by your side through whatever challenges come our way, and to never forget that we built our beginning on a foundation of compassion." There wasn't a dry eye in the room when I finished. Even some of the nursing staff were dabbing at their cheeks. Liam's vows were equally moving, and when we were pronounced husband and wife, the cheer that went up from the residents was deafening. The reception was held in the same space, with the chairs rearranged around small tables for dining. The nursing home's dietary staff had worked with our caterer to ensure appropriate food options for all the residents who were joining the celebration, while still creating the elegant meal we had planned for our guests. As we had expected, my mother and sister made a brief appearance at the reception, accepting congratulations stiffly and declining champagne. They didn't approach Grandma Evelyn, and they left before the first dance, my mother claiming a migraine, Olivia not bothering with an excuse. But their absence couldn't dampen the joy of the celebration. The residents who would become our friends over the planning months were fully engaged in the festivities. Mr. Peterson told animated stories of the celebrity weddings he had provided flowers for in his career. Mrs. Davis complimented every detail of my dress as if she had designed it herself. Even the more confused residents seemed to absorb the happy atmosphere, smiling and swaying to the music. Our first dance as husband and wife was to At Last by Etta James, a nod to Grandma Evelyn's favorite song from her youth. As we swayed together, I noticed many of the residents singing along, transported perhaps to their own wedding days. The most special moment came when Liam suggested we have a dance with Grandma Evelyn. The staff helped position her wheelchair in the center of the dance floor, and Liam and I each held one of her hands as we moved in a small circle around her. The photographer captured her expression of pure joy, a moment I knew would become my most treasured wedding photo. As the dance ended, Grandma leaned forward and said clearly, "I'm glad I lived to see this. To see my Chloe so happy with a man who understands what matters." The party continued well into the evening, though we were careful not to exhaust the elderly residents. As the event wound down, many of the nursing home staff and residents formed a farewell line to see us off. "That was the most beautiful wedding I've ever been to," Nurse Grace told me as she hugged me goodbye. "And I've been to dozens." "You brought so much joy to this place," the activities director added. "These residents will be talking about this for months." As Liam and I prepared to leave for the hotel where we'd spend our wedding night, before departing for a short honeymoon the next day, I made one last stop at Grandma Evelyn's side. She was tired but radiantly happy. "Thank you for being here," I told her, knowing the words were inadequate for what I felt. "I wouldn't have missed it for the world," she replied. "Now go start your life with that wonderful man. And don't worry about what your mother thinks. She'll come around when she sees how happy you are." I kissed her cheek and promised to visit as soon as we returned from our honeymoon. As Liam and I walked through the nursing home's front doors as husband and wife, rice being tossed by our friends and the more mobile residents, I felt complete peace about our decision. What I didn't know was that while we had been celebrating, our wedding photographer had been posting select images to his professional social media accounts. Images that would change everything by morning. Liam and I spent our wedding night at a boutique hotel downtown. Both exhausted but happy, we agreed not to check our phones until morning, wanting to stay in our bubble of newlywed bliss as long as possible. Over room service breakfast, Liam finally reached for his phone to check the time, as we had a noon flight to catch for our mini honeymoon in California wine country. "That's weird," he frowned, looking at his screen. "I have 27 missed calls and about 50 text messages." "From who?" I asked, reaching for my own phone, which I'd left turned off. "Most from your college roommate, Emily. Some from my best man, a few numbers I don't recognize." He was scrolling through, his expression growing more confused. "They're all saying to check social media, that we're going viral." I powered up my phone to find a similar flood of notifications. As they continued to pour in, I opened the link Emily had sent with the message, "OMG, CHLOE. You're famous. Tot." It led to our wedding photographer Anthony's professional Instagram page, where he had posted a series of images from our wedding the night before. The main photo showed Liam and me dancing with Grandma Evelyn, her face radiating joy as we held her hands. The caption read, "Some say venues make weddings special. This couple proved it's the love that does." Swipe to see how they brought their wedding to a nursing home so the grandmother could attend. Hashtag love wins. Hashtag wedding photography. Hashtag real love. The post had over 100,000 likes already and thousands of comments. "Oh my God," I whispered, scrolling through the comments. "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." I'm sobbing. What a tribute to family love. This is what weddings should be about. The grandmother's face has me in tears. Worth every sacrifice. But then I saw it. A comment from my sister posted late last night. "Lol, as the bride's sister, I can tell you this was a desperate attention grab. She was offered multiple better options but insisted on this poverty wedding for social media clout." My mother had replied to her, "Olivia, please. We agreed to keep family matters private." Dozens of people had responded angrily to Olivia's comment, defending our choice and criticizing her attitude. Anthony had apparently deleted the comments, but screenshots were already circulating. As we watched, my phone began ringing. It was my mother. "Chloe, you need to call your photographer and tell him to take down those photos immediately," she said without preamble when I answered. "Good morning to you too, Mom. I just saw them myself. They're inappropriate and invasive. He didn't have permission to post them." "Actually, he did. It was in our contract." "Well, he didn't have permission to include your grandmother or the nursing home." "This is a violation of privacy." I took a deep breath. "Mom, what's really bothering you? Is it that people can see where we got married, or that they can see your and Olivia's comments?" There was a pause. "People are sending hate messages to your sister. Her Instagram is being flooded with negative comments. This is affecting her professionally. Because she publicly mocked our wedding," I pointed out. "Actions have consequences." "This isn't like you, Chloe. being vindictive.
I'm not being vindictive.
I didn't ask for the photos to go viral. But I'm also not going to pretend our wedding was something to be ashamed of. Your father's business associates have seen it. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Before I could respond, call waiting beeped. It was Nurse Grace from the nursing home. Mom, I have to take this. It might be about Grandma. I switched calls, bracing for bad news. But Grace was calling with the opposite. Chloe, I don't know if you've seen the photos online, but they've reached us here. The residents are absolutely thrilled. Your grandmother is being treated like a celebrity. Everyone wants to hear about the wedding from her perspective. It's the most animated we've seen some of these folks in years. Relief flooded through me. That's wonderful. Is Grandma doing okay with the attention? She's loving it. Keep saying her granddaughter is famous now. Grace laughed. Just thought you'd want to know the positive impact you're having here. After hanging up, I relayed the conversation to Liam, who had been fielding his own calls from friends and family. Apparently, we're trending on Twitter, he informed me. And a few morning shows want to interview us when we get back from our honeymoon. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. Thanks a lot. My boss saw the wedding photos, and now everyone at work is talking about me behind my back. Hope you're happy with yourself. I showed Liam the text, feeling a mix of guilt and righteous anger. Should I respond? He thought for a moment. Only if you want to. But remember, we didn't do anything wrong. We didn't post those comments. We just got married in a way that was meaningful to us. I decided to text back simply, I'm sorry you're having a hard time. We didn't expect the photos to go viral. We were just trying to include Grandma. Olivia's response was immediate. Bull, you knew exactly what you were doing. You've always loved playing the martyr. Take the photos down, or I'll never forgive you. That's when something shifted in me. Years of trying to please my mother and sister, of accommodating their concerns about appearances, of doubting my own instincts. It suddenly felt like a weight I could finally set down. I'm not taking them down, I told Liam firmly. And I'm not apologizing for our wedding anymore. He smiled and took my hand. That's my wife. Throughout the day, as we traveled to the airport and boarded our flight, the story continued to spread. By the time we landed in California, the original post had been shared by several major media outlets, framed as a heartwarming example of prioritizing family over tradition. Our phones continued to explode with notifications, but we made a pact to check them only once a day during our honeymoon. This was our time, and we deserved to enjoy it. But 3 days into our trip, I received a call from the nursing home that I couldn't ignore. Grandma Evelyn had taken a fall and was disoriented. She was asking for me. We cut our honeymoon short and flew home immediately. When we arrived at the nursing home, Grandma was in bed, a bruise on her forehead from the fall. There's my famous girl, she said when she saw me, her voice weaker than before. How are you feeling, Grandma? I asked, taking her hand. Like an 88-year-old who fell down, she joked weakly. But they tell me I'm all over the internet now, so that's something. She dozed off as we sat with her, the nurse explaining that her confusion was increasing, and they were monitoring her closely. As we were leaving, we ran into my mother in the hallway. Her appearance surprised me. She looked tired, her usual perfect appearance slightly disheveled. I've been here since they called about the fall, she explained. Your father's coming after work. An awkward silence fell between us. The media attention has been unexpected, she finally said. For all of us, I agreed. Some of my clients saw the story. They thought it was... She seemed to struggle for the word. Touching. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. A crack in her perfect facade. Would you like to get coffee in the cafeteria? I offered. We could talk. She nodded, and as we walked together, I felt the first tentative step toward healing a rift that had nearly broken our family apart. Asterisk. The days following our return were a whirlwind of hospital visits, media inquiries, and uncomfortable family conversations. Grandma Evelyn's condition stabilized, but the doctors confirmed what we had feared. Her dementia was progressing more rapidly, and the fall had accelerated her decline. My mother, to her credit, maintained a regular presence at the nursing home. We often found ourselves sitting on opposite sides of Grandma's bed. 3 generations of women linked by blood, but separated by vastly different values and priorities. Olivia was slower to come around. She had faced genuine backlash at work and online, with screenshots of her poverty wedding comment circulating widely. Her initial anger toward me eventually gave way to a sullen acceptance, though real reconciliation seemed distant. I didn't ask for any of this attention, I told her, during a tense lunch 3 weeks after the wedding. But you're not exactly discouraging it either, she pointed out, stirring her iced tea aggressively. I gave that interview to the local news to talk about elder inclusion and the importance of making events accessible, not to embarrass you. She sighed heavily. I shouldn't have made that comment. It was mean and stupid, but I still don't understand why you had to be so different. Why couldn't you just do things the normal way? Because normal wouldn't have included the person who helped raise me, I said simply. And that wasn't acceptable to me. Something in my quiet certainty seemed to reach her. She didn't apologize outright, but her defensive posture relaxed slightly. I guess I never really understood your relationship with Grandma. Mom always made it seem like you were trying to make her look bad by being so close to her mother. That was never my intention, I assured her. I just loved her. That conversation marked the beginning of a slow thaw between us. It wasn't forgiveness, exactly. More like a mutual decision to stop dwelling on the hurt. Meanwhile, Liam and I settled into newlywed life, navigating the unexpected attention our wedding had brought, while trying to establish our own routines and traditions. We visited Grandma Evelyn at least 3 times a week, often bringing photos or small treats to brighten her day. On good days, she would recount the wedding to anyone who would listen, embellishing details with each telling until the community room became a palace, and the guest list included celebrities. On bad days, she would look at me with confusion, asking when the wedding was going to take place. Rather than correct her, I would simply show her the photos and let her experience the joy anew. You're so patient with her, my mother observed one afternoon as we left Grandma's room together. I was never good at that. You had different priorities, I said, not unkindly. Career, social standing. I thought those things would make me happy, she admitted. Make all of us happy. Are they making you happy? She didn't answer directly, but the question hung between us, an opening for future conversations. 4 months after our wedding, Grandma Evelyn's health took a sudden downturn. She developed pneumonia, and at her advanced age, with her already fragile health, the prognosis was poor. The family gathered at her bedside, differences temporarily set aside in the face of impending loss. Even Olivia came, awkwardly holding Grandma's hand and reminiscing about childhood memories. In a moment of clarity during her final days, Grandma looked at my mother and said, "Catherine, you raised a good girl. Strong, knows her own mind. Like you used to be." My mother broke down then, years of complicated emotions finally surfacing. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered, "for a lot of things." Grandma Evelyn passed peacefully 3 days later, with all of us around her. In her final moments, she squeezed my hand and murmured, "Best wedding ever." The funeral was held at her church, followed by a reception at my parents' house. Surprisingly, several residents and staff members from the nursing home attended, having become attached to Grandma during her time there. They brought stories and memories that even my mother hadn't heard, painting a fuller picture of her final years.
She talked about your wedding every day, Nurse Grace told us.
Said it was worth living to 90 just to see that. In the months that followed, a subtle shift occurred in our family dynamics. Grief has a way of clarifying what matters, and my mother seemed to be reevaluating her priorities. She asked more questions about my daily life, showed genuine interest in Liam's career, and even volunteered with me at a local senior center, inspired by the connections we had made at Lakeside Care Center. Olivia remained more distant, but the sharp edges of her criticism had softened. When she announced her own engagement 6 months after Grandma's passing, she surprised everyone by asking for my input on her plans.
Nothing too conventional, she said with a small smile. I want it to mean something, like yours did. On the 1-year anniversary of our wedding,
Liam and I decided to honor Grandma Evelyn's memory by hosting a celebration at the nursing home. We brought cake and decorations, set up the same community room where we had exchanged vows, and invited everyone who had been part of that special day. My mother and father came, bringing photo albums of Grandma's younger years to share with her former neighbors. Olivia came too with her fiancé, both of them surprisingly at ease in the environment she had once mocked. As we shared stories and laughter, I realized how profoundly that single decision to move our wedding to accommodate Grandma Evelyn had rippled through all our lives. It had forced a reckoning with values, challenged long-held assumptions about what matters, and ultimately brought healing where there had been division.
I think I finally understand,
my mother said quietly as we stood together, watching the residents enjoy the celebration. What you did wasn't about rejecting my values. It was about honoring your own. It took me a long time to have the courage to do that, I admitted. You get that from her, she said, nodding toward a photo of Grandma Evelyn that we had placed prominently on a memory table. She always knew exactly who she was. The lesson I carry forward from our nursing home wedding isn't about defiance or proving a point. It's about the courage to align your actions with your deepest values, even when that alignment comes at a social cost. It's about recognizing that meaningful relationships matter more than appearances, and that love, in its purest form, never asks, "How will this look to others?" but rather, "How can I best show up for those I care about?" Our wedding photos still circulate occasionally on social media, usually shared as an example of choosing substance over style. Liam and I smile when friends mention seeing them, but the external validation no longer matters much. What matters is that we began our marriage by honoring what we truly valued, setting a foundation of authenticity that continues to guide our choices. As I look back on that day, I don't remember the tension of the criticism. I remember Grandma Evelyn's face as we danced around her wheelchair. I remember the community that formed around our unconventional choice. I remember the moment I realized that doing the right thing often feels like the hardest thing, until you actually do it. And to those of you watching who might be facing your own choice between social approval and personal integrity, I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Have you ever had to choose between what others expected and what felt right to you? Did you regret your decision or find peace in it? Drop a comment, hit that like button if this resonated with you, and please subscribe for more stories about navigating family dynamics and standing in your truth. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. And remember, true love never asks for perfect circumstances, only authentic presence.